Hello and welcome. I'm David Robinson, online editor at The Banker, and today we're looking at the Nordics, following the release of the Banker's Nordic Banks ranking for 2021. With me to discuss this is James King, Europe editor at The Banker. The Nordic region has weathered the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic reasonably well. Why is that, and how have the region's banks fared?
Most Nordic banks registered growth through their total assets as well as their tier one capital positions. So it's been a really relatively strong performance from them during a very difficult and turbulent time. And the reasons for that are quite interesting. And really that is based largely on the fact that Nordic banks have digitized far more relative to their continental European peers, for example. So they were very well positioned to weather some of the challenges that were posed by the COVID-19 pandemic.
When we look at the last few years with the Nordic banking market, they have been haunted by these money laundering scandals, and it's really damaged their reputation. Has the sector moved on from those scandals?
Yeah, I think the extent of the damage to the reputation of the Nordic banks was quite high, particularly sort of in the immediate sort of heat and the immediate fallout from some of those scandals, which in some cases are still being investigated today. But on the whole, the region really is moving beyond some of those challenges, and we've seen the launch of things like a shared sort of KYC information platform for Nordic banks to address some of the weaknesses and the challenges in terms of their AML regimes. So it's definitely an ongoing process, but I think on the whole, Nordic banks are now trying to get back to the place where they're being sort of perceived as being well managed in terms of their AML frameworks and so on. So it's an ongoing journey, but I think they're getting there.
And finally, what does the Banker's ranking reveal about the growth outlook for Nordic banks in the coming years?
I think the underlying point here is that during the pandemic, most banks were able to really bolster their tier one capital positions and really sort of, I guess, secure themselves during a difficult time. And this means that they're very well positioned now to use that strong base to move forward and grow. And I think we're going to see over the next couple of years, as the Nordic region's economy really expands in line with global trends, we will see a sharp increase perhaps in profitability and other growth metrics from the region's lenders as they sort of ride this wave of expansion across the wider region. So I think there's going to be a very sort of bright outlook for Nordic banks over the next year or two.
Well, James, thank you. Looking forward to returning in a year's time to see how the Nordic banks perform in 2022.